I try to tell you that we're always going to be here. We'll always be here.
We will always be here?
Always.
Me and you?
Well, hopefully that goes as long as possible. But no, that's not what I mean. I mean the sports collective San Francisco fan base will always be here debating Brock Purdy.
Right. And
always.
It's got to be a weird spot for you as the president of Brockistan.
No, it's a great spot.
And for those of you who don't know, Mark is the president of Brockistan. No one loves Brock Purdy more than my partner.
We're meeting again on Thursday, actually.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So
reconvening.
If anybody wants to come, we'll make sure there are extra chairs.
But it's interesting because the fan base is still debating the merits of Brock Purdy, and yet as the president of Brockistan, you don't always go out there and campaign for Brock, but it's got to be a little odd for you that there still is question about whether or not he's that good.
No, it's great. This is why Brockistan still gets as many donations as it does. Because there's still controversy. If it was just something that was easy and we could just plop him into the number 5 spot on the board, then nobody would feel emotionally activated by it. The reason that this is interesting is not because it's just yet another quarterback ranking board yawn, especially if it's by that wackadoodle with the ringer.
Steven Ruiz, quarterback savant.
Yawn. Okay, Brock Purdy, number 23, and then you move up to number 22. All right, Steven, thanks for the engagement farming. The reason this is interesting is it an aggregate of votes that come from actual NFL people. This is a collection put together by votes from coaches, scouts, and executives. And here are the top 10. We will go from 1 to 10 because the surprises at the top are not really there.
Right.
It's at the bottom that I think obviously is the conversation. I bet you could do number 1 and 2 without even looking at it. I got the board right here in front of me.
I mean, it would probably be Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes.
Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
They are number 1 and number 2. Number 3, Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. Number 4, Bengals Joe Burrow. Number 5, Lamar Jackson. All right, here's where it gets interesting. And I mean real interesting and real fast. In fact, you should say something when you disagree. Say something when you disagree.
Okay.
Number 1, Josh Allen. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. Number 3, Matthew Stafford. Number 4, Joe Burrow. Number 5, Lamar Jackson. Number 6, Dak Prescott.
Oh, really? Number 6?
Number 6, Dak Prescott.
Something. You'd asked me to say something if I disagree.
I sure did.
And I just said something. Feel like that's a little bit hot. Number 6, ahead of Justin Herbert and, such young stars as Drake Maye and I don't know. So something. I said something.
Okay. Let's go through the list and then we can pick it apart number by number. Number 7, Justin Herbert.
Okay. It feels low, but yeah, I already said something.
Low.
I think that he would be ahead of Dak for me.
Okay.
So yeah.
Number 8, Drake Maye. Number 9, your boy, Jared Goff.
Hang in there, big guy. There'll be brighter days ahead.
Pretty bright. He's the number 9 quarterback in the NFL.
Not bad. Yeah. Not bad. Okay.
Anything?
No. I mean,
all right.
Yeah.
All right. And then rounding out the top 10. Actually, be fun with all the quarterbacks on the board. Who do you think got it? Who do you think came in 10th place on the list?
Well, the whole bit has been set up for the president of Brockistan to rail against this, so I don't think it's Brock Purdy.
Yeah, it's not Brock Purdy.
It's either Jordan Love or Trevor Lawrence, and man, I love Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going to say Trevor Lawrence is at number 10.
It is neither of your candidates.
Oh!
It is not Jordan Love nor Trevor Lawrence. Both of them ended up with Brock Purdy on the honorable mention list.
Okay.
It's Caleb Williams.
All right.
Chicago Bears.
I would say that there are more people who like him more than I do. Mm-hmm. I think that Caleb Williams had a good year last year. I still would like to see it another time before I'm willing to elevate him to that level, but there's a lot of buzz about Caleb Williams going into this year.
All right, so and then the list of players who somebody could at least raise a hand about and be upset are the guys you just, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, probably Baker Mayfield. Who else could raise a stink? Jalen Hurts, for sure.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
Jaden Daniels, even though, I mean, it's early in his career and he's coming off of a frustrating year, but Drake Maye made it after one year.
Jaden is maybe hiding behind his mom, depending on who you ask. That's what Brendan Ayuk said.
Got it.
As boy.
Stop being a little cat.
I don't know that anybody else would have much of a Bo Nix,
little ass boy,
CJ Stroud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's probably the back half. So, I mean, Sam Darnold won a Super Bowl,
right?
And he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, still, not getting that same level of a mention. And, Kyler Murray's got a new team and you didn't hear his name. And
got dumped.
I think, is Aaron Rodgers still a quarterback?
He is.
Is that still a thing?
I'm told.
Okay.
Apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I think that's the deal, right? That sounds like about the deal. Two things are funny about this because this turned into a big Twitter debate, and I saw two sides that wanted to kind of put up their dukes. And one side was like, look at this. So many Niner fans want to tell the world about how good Brock Purdy is, but now we've got to vote from the actual people. The scouts, the execs, and the coaches, and the players. And they have all put this together, and Brock did not make the top 10. I can tell you even previewed this a moment ago by saying, boy, I'm just gussing it all up to really take my shot. If you tell me that Brock Purdy is your number 11 quarterback, I'm not really mad at that.
Yeah.
I'm not really mad at that. In the very next breath, I think that it is incredibly easy for me to make a case as to why you would rather have Brock Purdy than Dak Prescott, why you'd rather have Brock Purdy than Jared Goff. And maybe you'd rather have Caleb Williams than Brock Purdy, but that is at minimum still TBD. I think the Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels thing is funny to me. Both of them, they were 1 and 2 in the draft. They've both played 2 seasons. Both of them had one good year and one bad year. And Caleb Williams is the bee's knees, and Jaden is forgotten.
Right. And go back to C.J. Stroud, who I think was the predecessor to both of them in that same vein, which is good season, playoff QB, and then not a great season. And so now his stock is suddenly in the crapper,
right? Because,
you can't always be amazing every year, although Brock Purdy, as we mentioned earlier this offseason, he is, I think, 100 pass attempts away from being the number 1 all-time rated quarterback. Once he qualifies, I think it's 100 pass attempts,
like
roughly. If he doesn't absolutely fall apart, he will be the top quarterback rated passer in the history of the game. Once he qualifies.
Right.
Assuming he doesn't throw 7 interceptions in his first 100 passes.
And apparently Kyle Shanahan is that good.
Well, and that's where...
Is that good that he can just create the highest rated passer of all time?
And I just was glancing at Steven Ruiz's rankings, the aforementioned guy from The Ringer. He did it in February, and his latest had Brock Purdy at number 16, which I felt was a little bit low. But as we go through all of these different quarterback ratings, I love Mike Sando and his QB tiers. This list is, I think, well-sourced, and Steven Ruiz is whatever. But for me, the real ranking is the play caller and the quarterback. Mm-hmm. It's the combination of the two. And I think about Shanahan and Brock Purdy. What other quarterback, play caller, coach combo would you put above them?
Shanahan!
Right, exactly. The future. For me, there's not more than 3, even 4 feels like a stretch to me, tandems that you would take ahead of Shanahan and Brock Purdy.
I agree with you. By the way, Jaden Daniels and Sam Darnold also made this honorable mention list. The full honorable mention list was Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Jaden Daniels, Sam Darnold. So, in effect, if you're going to do the top 10, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more that are in the honorable mention. Those are your best 17 quarterbacks, according to coaches, scouts, and executives. And then 3 other players just received any votes at all to round out the top 20. They were not honorable mention, but they did receive at least 1 vote. Bo Nix, C.J. Stroud, and Daniel Jones.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? Who was off to a really good start with the Colts last year before getting hurt. All right, so that's your list. I saw this point get brought up actually by Sterling Bennett. I thought this was an interesting way to react to this. So wait a minute. Coaches, execs, and scouts. You mean the same people who draft players? The same people who draft players have downgraded Brock Purdy. Huh. Not the first time.
Right. The majority of those teams passed on him at least 7 times.
All of those teams passed on him multiple times.
Unless you were, the Rams and you had no picks because you blanked them picks. But I wonder if you go through that list, how many of those top 10 quarterbacks were all first-round picks? And, Allen, yes, Mahomes, and Lamar, I think it was at the end of the first round.
End of the first round. Allen, Mahomes, Stafford, Burrow. Hell, most of these guys are number 1 overall practically.
Right.
Lamar. Dak was not a first-rounder. I think he was a third-rounder.
Okay.
Herbert, first-rounder. Drake Maye, first-rounder. Jared Goff, obviously first-rounder.
Number 1 overall.
Caleb Williams, number 1 overall.
Yeah, and so
only 1.
I do think that now that you mention it, what Sterling Bennett, friend of the program, a guy who does a great job with the Niners overtime show with Grandy, it feels a little bit like a confirmation bias where these scouts and the execs, they're the ones who make these picks, and they all collectively thought that these quarterbacks were the bee's knees, and so you're going to go ahead and lean on your bias and put them ahead of somebody who is Mr. Irrelevant.
Even if I'm bringing the honorable mention, there's only 2 more quarterbacks that get paired with Dak Prescott as non-first rounders, and that's Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts.
Right.
Everybody, even the honorable mention, Sam Darnold, Jaden Daniels, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence. Yep. Two of them were number 1 overall.
Exactly. So of the list of all the people that you were mentioning, honorable mention in the top 10, I think about half of them were number 1 overall. And the other half of the half, or a quarter of them, were top 10 picks or top half of the first round as well.
Jalen Hurts, a Super Bowl champion. Sam Darnold, a Super Bowl champion. And then the top 10 list, how many Super Bowl champions do we have on here? Basically, we've got
Mahomes
and Stafford.
Yep.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. So,
but if you go back to when Stafford started quarterbacking, which is now, 16 years, like between Stafford, who got the 1, and Mahomes, who has the 3, you got a handful of Brady's in there and not a lot of other quarterbacks who've actually been able to win the damn thing.
Exactly right. And was looking at something recently from Stafford when he was kind of talking about his success. And one of the last things he said was, I'm super blessed to be paired with one of the best play callers in the NFL. That really, really helps me perform at my best. Nobody ever says that about Matt Stafford.
Right.
Nobody ever says, hey, but Sean McVay, concoction of Sean McVay. Matt Stafford hadn't even won Silverado Resort Tournament champion before he was paired with Sean McVay.
He'd won a couple playoff games in Detroit.
Maybe one. But there was nothing to speak of. So, I don't know. That to me, that's all part of it. I'm not like... I don't know. Have I ever stood on a table here in this room and told you that Brock Purdy must absolutely have to be on your top 10 list?
No.
I'm not offended if he's 11 or 12 or whatever. But if anybody thinks that this list somehow is like a mic drop in the larger conversation that we've been having over the last 3 or 4 years, I don't feel that it is. I don't feel that way at all.
No.
I mean, even the company he's with in the honorable mention category, these are pretty damn good quarterbacks.
Yeah, you've got a Super Bowl winner in there, and just confirming Matthew Stafford 0-3 in Detroit in the playoffs. So, in fact, zero playoff wins, 3 berths and 3 losses. And so this is where this conversation, and I'm going to mention this between now and the end of my days on radio, we oversimplify this conversation. Like the quarterback rankings, and again, the quarterback tiers, Mike Sando, I love it. If Patrick Mahomes didn't have Andy Reid, if Brock Purdy didn't have Kyle Shanahan, if Matthew Stafford never got to be a Ram with Sean McVay, are they going to be as good? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that they're not talented. And you could look at any quarterback in a bad situation and see that, yeah, it's not going to be as good. And I think about Trevor Lawrence, where he finally now has some stability and an offensive coordinator who I think is going to be pretty good. And same thing with Caleb Williams. He got an offensive-minded head coach, and how much better did he get last year?
Although Caleb Williams was also, to me, the Chicago Bears are my number one team this year that is primed for a fallback.
Yep.
Because I just don't think that they're sustainable. I don't think the way they played football last year was sustainable. Being heroic late in the fourth quarter is a wonderful characteristic for a quarterback. But that's not a way to build a team, I don't think. You know, we watched the Kansas City Chiefs be that team the year before, and they couldn't even make the playoffs last year. Will that happen to the Bears? I don't know. I think they're probably in if the Niners division is not the hardest division in football, then the NFC North is. I think all 4 of those teams are viable. I don't know exactly what the Vikings are going to have to offer, but that's like 4 real teams in that division. So that's going to be very, very hard for the Bears to repeat and win the division this year.
No doubt. I look at last year, and you had New England and Chicago both go worst to first. And looking at the history of the NFL since they expanded to 8 divisions, almost every year, 2 years ago, no team did it, but it's usually about one team a year will go from last in the division to first in the division. And I wonder, just as a mid-July take, who you think it might be among the New York Jets, 3-14. Cleveland went 5-12. They were worst. The Titans were 3-14. The Raiders.
Okay.
Or the Giants, 4-13. The Lions at 9-8. I guess technically were last in that division. The Saints at 6-11, or the Cardinals at 3-14. Feels like the Giants are the easy choice.
Oh no, I think the Lions are the easy choice
to go worst to first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to say the New Orleans Saints would be my second pick.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not because I think the Saints are going to be amazing, but I think they're viable, and I think that division is completely and always gettable. Like, nobody's good there. Those would be my first 2 answers.
Okay.
The Giants, look, they've got a good coach now, and they've got an up-and-coming quarterback who, if he can stay out of the news, seems like he can throw the football. I like some of the free agent signings that they've had. They have a good defense, but that's they're going to vault over the Eagles. Maybe. I don't think it's unthinkable. I'll make that my third choice.
Yep.
The AFC ones all sound ridiculous. Those all sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
I cannot wrap my head around any of those 4 even making the playoffs this year.
Cleveland is the one where, if you still had Myles Garrett, I don't even know who their quarterback is going to be, and that thing is a constant revolving door.
Might be Deshaun Watson.
It might be. And, the Jets, I'm pulling for them because my old neighbor, my buddy, is on the staff, and Aaron Glenn, he probably is the favorite to be first coach fired, which I think is unfair because that roster still is under construction. The Titans at 3-14, they were a full 10 games worse than Jacksonville last year. And the Raiders, God love them, I still think that thing is a couple years away from being a couple years away.
Yeah, that just doesn't, and just the competition that each of them have. Yeah, love Robert Saleh. We'll see. That division could be gettable. Nobody feels ready there. Nobody feels ready in one of those 4 teams. But the NFC ones outside of the Cardinals all feel like they could play some football this year.
Yep.
Those 3 teams.
I wonder about New Orleans, and, maybe you're higher on Tyler Shough than I am.
He didn't look bad.
No.
Down the stretch, he didn't look bad.
Yeah, and I haven't poured through the schedules as far as, who plays whom and when, but, you get that last place schedule and you do have some of those easier crossovers. And that's where I'm a little bit higher on the 49ers than I otherwise would be because you get that third place schedule this year.
I mean, the New Orleans Saints get a last place schedule and their record looks so awful. They finished 2 games out of first place.
Right.
2 games. That's all it took. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of fun to look at. But larger point that we're talking about with this whole quarterback thing and where Brock fits in to the whole situation and some of the other quarterbacks. I don't know, man. I know that you've often said what ends the draftism thing is a Super Bowl victory, and I just don't think I even buy that. And my latest example will be Sam Darnold. He won a Super Bowl, and I don't think anybody's necessarily like, yep, that's the guy now. You can see, like, when I look at this list, and again, you put Brock wherever you want. You put him 11th, 8th, 10th, 12th. It's somewhere in there. But you can see draftism all over it. Here's how I would define draftism as far as a list like this. If you're drafted late, you have to go so over the top in proving yourself that it takes time. We need to see this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times before we buy it. But if you're drafted early, all it takes, about 6 or 7 games. Like, what are Drake Maye and Caleb Williams doing on this list? What are they doing here? Caleb Williams has played for 2 years.
Yep.
And one of them wasn't good. And Drake Maye has played 1 season. And sure, he went to the Super Bowl, and I believe he belongs on the list. I'm a really, really big supporter of Drake Maye. I think Caleb Williams and Drake Maye both going to be really good. But what is it that if you're drafted in the first round, if you look good immediately, it's over. We buy it. Done. Easy to believe.
Confirmation bias, right? Because we all saw him in college, and some of these guys won the Heisman, and then they get drafted very highly, and they go out and they have success. It's like, yeah, this is what we expected. None of us watched Iowa State. I don't know if I ever even saw Brock Purdy in college, let alone knew what Brock Purdy was, and then he gets drafted as an afterthought. No Mr. Irrelevant ever really does anything, let alone quarterbacks, and then he does all that he does. And so easier for us to be believers in Brock because we see it, but for the nation at large, it's, Trent Williams and Shanahan and Fred Warner and Bosa and Kittle. Like, yeah, and then maybe Brock.